directly. And then there is kind of an other that doesn't really fit into any of these categories, but they also influence state policy, especially in climate change, and will do affect how we advance that policy. And I just want to put a note that policy solutions are just one kind of solution. So because I'm a policy person, I'm going to be talking about policy solutions. I am not a campaigns person. I am not an election person. I am not an organizing person. There are lots of different ways to achieve climate justice. What I'm just going to be talking about are the policy solutions. So real quick, some level setting before I get into these policy solutions. And the first is that there are no solutions, only trade-offs. So just keep that in mind as we're thinking about these policies, that there is no silver bullet, there is no one big solution that will fix everything. Everything has trade-offs. And how we advance those policies is we make the case that that trade-off is worth it. So, and finally, if you want to go to policy, you don't need to be a lawyer. This is no shade to David Roberts, who is going to law school. But if you are interested in getting into the policy world, you do not need to go to law school. I did not go to law school. The best advice I ever got was you don't need to go to law school. So just keep that in mind if you are interested in getting into policy. So let's start with all of the lovely stuff that's going on at the federal level, because I figured let's start with the most depressing stuff. This is a quote I often steal from one of my coworkers, Peter Chen. These are not cuts. They are a transfer of costs to the state. So I thought that was a really good way of putting it, that while our president and Congress talk about all these wonderful cuts that they're making, and some other non-elected officials, they're not really cuts. They're just transferring the costs to our state. So let's start by talking about some of the influences, starting with clean car and clean air policies. So the federal government recently revoked New Jersey's ability to make more strict air quality rules. These are called CARB waivers, California Air Resource Board waivers, which allows those states to go above and beyond what the federal government does. Recently, Congress revoked that through what is likely an illegal action. So there are lawsuits ongoing. We are pretty confident we're going to win those lawsuits. But right now, those policies, including advanced clean cars 2 and advanced clean trucks, which require a certain percentage of sales in the state to be electric vehicles, those are currently on pause right now. And I'll talk about what we can do about that. Offshore wind and offshore drilling. I wanted to put these together because this is another kind of trade-off where if we had offshore wind, it is very unlikely that we would have offshore drilling because there just wouldn't be room. But the recent budget bill opened up and kind of mandated offshore drilling in a way. And one of the first actions that President Trump took in office was putting a moratorium, a pause on all offshore wind projects. Offshore wind was a huge economic opportunity for New Jersey, and it was going to provide a lot of energy generation that we really needed. IRA and clean energy tax credits. This is probably what I've seen the most talked about change in the budget bill. The one big beautiful budget bill was getting rid of these clean energy tax credits. These were credits that could pay for the entirety of a clean energy project. And what was cool about the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act passed under Biden, was it also gave access to these tax credits to nonprofit organizations like churches, governments, any other nonprofit, because before they didn't pay taxes, so you couldn't get tax credits. But those tax credits then could pay for the entirety of a project for a nonprofit. Those are now gone. And finally, the decentering of diversity, equity, and inclusion. This will affect New Jersey a lot of ways. And one example is the recent decision from NEPA, the National Environmental Protection Act, that allowed the expansion of the Newark Bay Bridge Turnpike. And there's lots of reasons that that project got approved, but one of them is likely because they couldn't take environmental justice into consideration when trying to stop that project. So that's one example of how that decentering of DEI is going to affect New Jersey. So let's talk about local government. Now, if you work in state politics, this is a biblical rule. Everything is home rule in New Jersey. So what home rule means, it's actually something from our state charter when our state was literally being built. The decision that anything that isn't explicitly named as a state authority in our charter and constitution is assumed to be under municipal rule, which means that our municipalities are extremely, extremely powerful, and we have 564 of them. So that is a lot of different ways to do things, a lot of power, very piecemeal. Mayors also have a huge influence on policy in New Jersey, specifically statewide policy. Mayors are basically a through line to state legislators. We learned this when we were trying to get funding for New Jersey Transit through the corporate transit fee. We got mayors to influence their legislators, and it really helped. So the mayors within legislative districts have a big influence on policy. And master plans. So a master plan is exactly what it sounds like, the master plan for a municipality that outlines basically all of the decisions that can happen in a municipality. And often what municipalities do is the bare minimum and say, well, we'll just do whatever the state makes us do when it comes especially to environmental protections. One example is warehouses. So the state a couple years ago, issued guidance on how to deal with warehouses at the municipal level, but it was just guidance. So a municipality would need to be proactive and redo their master plan now if they want to prevent something like a warehouse from coming to their municipality. Because to quote a friend of CRAN, the DEP Commissioner Sean LaTourette, that guidance for warehouses, he said this document is shooting all over itself, because all the document said was municipalities should do this, municipalities should do this, but it didn't require anything. So that's why municipalities need to step up and be proactive. All right, so now we're going to dive into the policy trends themselves. And we're going to start with adaptation. So once again, that's how we create a built environment that is ready for the effects of the climate crisis. And to start, little disclaimer there. So first challenge, and how I'm going to be talking about these are challenge, solution, challenge, solution. So challenge, we don't have dedicated funding for climate resilience in New Jersey. What that means is we have to deal with one-off grants from either the state or from the federal government to do resilience projects like better stormwater infrastructure, dealing with flooding, erosion control on the coast. We don't have a pool of funding at the state level that we can pull from for that. So the solution is to create it. One of those options is the Climate Superfund Act, something that CRAN is already working on that would create that pool of funding, and it's from the people who created, or organizations that created the climate crisis, a pool that we could pull from. New York also did this by bonding, which is essentially the government borrowing money to fund those projects to build their environment for the climate crisis. Another challenge is related to this, a needs assessment. We don't have one for climate resilience. We don't have a big number that says it's going to cost this much to make New Jersey resilient to climate change. New York had one, which was how they came up with that justification for the bonding. But it is not easy to do, obviously. You have to make a lot of guesses and a lot of math, but it helps create that cost-benefit analysis, because we can talk about how much it's going to cost versus how much we're going to save by investing early. So really the solution is just to do it. We're trying to get the government to do it. Next, the Office of Climate Resilience, which is set within the DEP. It's headed by Nick Angarone. That is only established by executive order. And that means that if the next governor decides that they do not want that office anymore, it only takes that governor checking a box and that office will go away. And that office is where all of these decisions about funding flow through. So the solution is to make it permanent through legislation, because if something is in legislation, a governor can't just reverse it. They would need legislation to reverse it. So it makes it a little bit more permanent. And the big one today, rollbacks to flood rules. So when Ben and I were talking about this presentation, these were all hypothetical. They were a rumor that there were going to be rollbacks to New Jersey's flood rules. And as I was making this presentation, they happened. So Monday morning, early afternoon, DEP and the governor announced that there were going to be rollbacks to New Jersey's flood protection rules. And not 6-7 hours later, 2 people in New Jersey died in floods. This is the exact wrong time to be rolling back flood rules. And the biggest challenge to these rules are corporate lobbyists who are using that financial argument, saying it's going to be too expensive to do this. So the solution is to do it back to them. Make the economic argument that we can't afford to roll back these rules because it's going to cost the state more. It's going to cost these families more. It's going to be too expensive to not plan for the climate crisis. And finally, no heat protection for workers. This is another tragedy that continually happens in New Jersey. As the climate crisis gets worse, workers are, especially those who work outside or in places where there's no air conditioning, are some of the most vulnerable people. So we need a heat standard. That is a proposed bill that is not law yet, that once again is being blocked by corporate lobbyists who are making that argument that they can't afford that. So we need that heat standard to protect workers. All right, climate mitigation. So once again, climate mitigation, reducing greenhouse gas emissions. We're going to start with highway widenings. Not only is New Jersey proposing to widen the turnpike, they're also proposing highway widenings in South Jersey. So just want to make sure that South Jersey doesn't get forgotten in all of this. And the justification for this has a lot to do with traffic. And transportation experts know that you do not fix traffic by adding lanes. There's a concept called induced demand, or as I like to put it, if you build it, they will come. If you add a lane, you're going to increase traffic. That is a known fact. So the solution to something like this, besides trying to fight the actual highway widening itself, is something like setting a goal to reduce vehicle miles traveled in the state and adopting the Minnesota law. Minnesota has a law that says that any transportation project has to demonstrate that it will not increase vehicle miles traveled. But first we need to start collecting that data. So we need to pass a law that says we want to set this goal and collect the data. And then the law that says no transportation project can be approved unless it does not increase vehicle miles traveled. And of course, promoting transportation alternatives. So that includes mass transit, bike, and walk. Now, very similar, we talked about the Federal California Air Resources Board waiver rollbacks. So the waiver would have allowed us to increase the amount of sales of electric vehicles in New Jersey. The reality is people are going to need cars in New Jersey, and if they do, they might as well be electric. These also affect big diesel trucks as well. Now, because of that rollback, we're not going to be able to enforce them right now, but some solutions are something called indirect source review, which would impose requirements on warehouses and ports themselves to reduce emissions and have those plans in place that are enforceable by the state. So that would target the actual businesses and corporations themselves to reduce their emissions. And once again, also transportation alternatives, because there's, we talk about the benefits of transit as saying, oh, it's the equivalent of taking this many cars off the road. Well, guess what? Nothing actually replaces taking those cars off the road. Now, my favorite topic, this is getting very nerdy, permitting barriers to clean energy development. So developing clean energy is very complicated and very expensive. And part of that reason is because there are a lot of barriers. Once again, this has to do with home rule, how much the local government can fight against a clean energy project if they don't want it, how complicated it is at the state level and at the regional level. There's lots of barriers. And because it takes so long to develop clean energy, that's likely one of the reasons that we don't have offshore wind right now, because Virginia was actually able to get their offshore wind project further along before Trump came into office. We in New Jersey were not able to. So one solution to that is to create a streamlined Office of Permitting at the state level. That is a one-stop shop. If you want to develop clean energy in New Jersey, you go to that office, you have one person that you talk to, and they help you through the entire process. Also, PJM is an emerging issue. PJM is our regional transmission organization. They oversee our entire electrical grid in 13 states. And PJM is also holding back clean energy development. So we need the governor to continue to pressure PJM to move projects forward faster, and perhaps even consider leaving PJM and starting our own RTO. And offshore wind, I talked about this already. The solution is to start laying the groundwork now for offshore wind, because offshore wind will come to New Jersey. It will be here. It's just a matter of when. We just need to get a more supportive president, I will say. So we can start laying the groundwork now by doing a lot of these things, like removing permitting barriers, setting up agreements, laying the actual transmission lines so that we're ready when it does come. One more slide on climate mitigation. We're going to talk about raids. New Jersey lawmakers love to raid unrelated funds to plug state budget holes. So two funds that fund climate resilience that were recently raided are RGGI, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, and the Clean Energy Fund. Both of these were rated for unrelated purposes and to give short-term relief instead of investing them in projects that would bring long-term relief. So the solution to something like this would be to create a lockbox to prevent the raids, either constitutionally or have stronger dedication language. One of the problems in New Jersey is that the budget bill overrules any laws. So even if you have a law that says you can only use this fund for this purpose, the budget bill will always override it. So that budget bill can say, we will use Clean Energy Fund to pay for state utilities. And that is okay because of the budget rule. However, a constitutional dedication is the only thing that overrides the budget. So a constitutional dedication is stronger. Now, I would be remiss to not mention that RGGI is generally opposed by a lot of environmental justice groups, and that's because it's a regional solution. So what RGGI does, it's, if you know what cap and trade means, it is where companies can trade credits of emitting carbon basically how much they are allowed to emit, and it allows those companies to sell those credits, which means that, let's say, there are lots of companies throughout New Jersey that aren't emitting, but there is one company in Newark that is still emitting. And that's the problem with regional solutions, is they don't consider some of those local issues. So once again, we really need to consider if there are any other regional solutions, weighing those benefits with the downsides, and having layers of protection on top of those, like the cumulative impacts law. That law says that it gives an extra layer of protection. So if a polluting facility tries to get built or get their permit renewed in a community where there's already a lot of pollution, the DEP has the authority to deny it. So that is an extra layer of protection against some of those harms that may come from a regional solution. And another one of my favorite topics, rise in data center demand and an outdated electrical grid. So I think almost everyone here, if we went around, could tell a story about a time where they recently lost power. Some of you may even have them from this week. And not only is our grid itself outdated, but we're about to have a lot more demand on our grid because of AI data centers. So there's a lot of different solutions to this. One of them is Beyonce. And it's not Beyonce the singer, but that is the acronym that people have started using. Not my idea, so if you don't like it, don't blame me. But it means bring your own clean energy. So this would require that large data centers would have to build an equivalent amount of clean energy generation for what they plan on using in New Jersey. And they would also have to help modernize our grid by investing in better transmission infrastructure. So this is one way that not only can we manage data center demand, but we can also help make our grid better in general. And state policy trends other. So this is kind of that weird other little bucket. Sorry, there's a car alarm going off. Weird other bucket. These are things that I think affect our ability to change climate policy in New Jersey. First is Oprah. And once again, not Oprah herself, but the Open Public Records Act. So the Open Public Records Act is what gives us as citizens in New Jersey the right to access certain public records. There were recent rollbacks. God, was that last year? And it makes it just a little bit harder to access those public records. And it also reduces our rights as citizens. So really the best solution here is to just continue to use it. Talk to experts. One of them is CJ Griffin. CJ is a reporter who's very active on social media. I'm sorry, CJ is an attorney who is very active on social media, who is an Oprah expert. Follow advocates like CJ on social media because they talk a lot about Oprah. And just using Oprah helps, especially people who are professional advocates, justify it. And follow reporters, because reporters also use Oprah a lot in their reporting. And relatedly, oh, I'm sorry, we're not there yet. I do have something related later. Another challenge is the lack of staff at agencies and no administrative funding. So nobody likes giving administrative funding. People don't like paying the salaries of the people that do the work, or I should say lawmakers don't like paying for salaries of the people who do the work, even though that is usually the biggest cost in an agency, is paying those salaries of the people who do the work. And just a lack of hiring that's happening at the state level. So one solution is to just keep up with the budget and keep an eye on how much funding each agency is getting, making sure that it's scaling with the responsibilities that that agency has. Keep an eye on the hiring for that agency. How many vacancies are there? If an agency has 20% vacancies, that's obviously going to affect its ability to do its job. And make sure that any new initiative has funding appropriated to that agency so that they can pay the people and possibly even hire more people to do the job. Now, another challenge is conflicts of interest in the legislature. So our legislature, there are no rules about conflicts of interest, which means that if you are a legislator, you can pass laws that directly benefit you personally. And there are a lot of examples that I will not give, but there are a lot of legislators who are lawyers. So if they pass laws that benefit them, even financially, this is a big problem. And one of the solutions is supporting investigative journalism. There are a lot of, not a lot, there's not enough, but there are a few amazing investigative journalists here in New Jersey. So make sure that you are supporting that journalism, whether it's financially, whether it's posting, talking about it, telling that reporter, because those investigative reporters are doing amazing work exposing some of those conflicts of interest. And finally, campaign finance election reform. One of the wins that we recently got was getting rid of the line in New Jersey. And we saw some of those benefits in this last primary. But there are always going to be struggles with transparency around who is funding campaigns, who is allowed to run, how do we report on all of that. And really, one of the biggest solutions is kind of what you folks are already doing, which is using people power. So we know we're never going to be able to outspend the fossil fuel industry. We're never going to be able to outspend corporate lobbyists. But what we have that they don't have is people power. We have the vast majority of New Jerseyans on our side, and we can use that to enact real change. And finally, relatedly, the history of white-led mainstream environmentalism in New Jersey. This is, and not just in New Jersey, but obviously in the United States, the environmental movement has historically not centered justice, especially racial justice, social justice, economic justice. And the solution is, I don't know, like maybe start some like Gen Z-led organization that prioritizes justice and especially racial justice, not just as a tactic, but as a central tenet to achieve the goals of creating a truly better future for all New Jerseyans. And I don't know, maybe you can get some guy like this to run it. Just a thought. What? And finally, just some inspiration. So every single person on this call needs to read this book. This book completely changed how I think about environmental activism, how I consider climate policies, As Long as Grass Grows by Dina Gilo-Whitaker. And this is a quote, actually not from her, but from someone else, but it was in the book. It may be true, as Martin Luther King Jr. once said, that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. What is equally true, however, is that most of the time we have to forcibly bend it with our very own hands. And that's Thomas Lindsay, who is an amazing lawyer who centers social justice and racial justice in the environmental movement and in democracy. So whenever I think about environmental policy change, I always think about that quote. And now finally, here is where you can stalk me. I am on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it, Alex from NJ. I'm on Blue Sky, I'm on LinkedIn, and that is my email. And you can check out New Jersey Policy Perspective on X, Instagram, and our award-winning TikTok. These are two of my coworkers here kissing our award that we got for our TikTok. And I also want to plug NJPP's Blueprint, especially if you are interested in things including climate transportation, but otherwise, any of the other topics that I talked about. Our Blueprint is on our website, and it outlines what we'd like to see the next administration prioritize as far as tax and budget, healthcare, social safety net, criminal justice, immigration, et cetera, et cetera. So all of that is on our website. And now that is the end of my presentation. So I will pass it back to Ben. Ben, what's next? What are we doing next?
What's next is Anna going over, well, I mean, you can answer some questions. Anna, you're going to go over some of our stuff that we're getting into. But I see there's some questions. Dean?
Yeah, I'm wondering why our great speaker didn't mention anything about solar energy. There's been some great changes and expansions of solar energy, and a very strong effort to make social justice. The new community solar programs are prioritizing people middle and low income. And I'm very thrilled by what's going on there, but wasn't even mentioned.
Dean, you are exactly right. And that is one of the things that I had to sacrifice for time, because we are doing really great things. So I almost was like, this isn't even a challenge. But yes, what Dean is talking about, there is so much exciting stuff happening in solar.
And Anna is going to talk about all of those things.
Oh my God. Great.
From us. Yeah.
Great. Well, Dean, if she doesn't answer your question, remind us, and then we will get back to it, because Dean is absolutely right. There are amazing things, especially that center some of those community benefits happening for solar. All right, so I guess we'll go next
to Ken.
Yes, that's Elaine. It's my wife's computer.
Yeah.
not trying to be deceitful. Listen, Alex, I think that was great. By the way, I'm on the steering committee of Empower New Jersey. I think you were spot on in everything that you said. My one biggest issue, if I could wave a magic wand to make this happen, well, if I could do that, then maybe it'd be a different outcome. But look, the one biggest problem we have is that we have no BPU truly detailed guideline to get us to fix the climate problem in New Jersey. The master plan that they wrote was really not even a plan. It was about 160 suggestions and possibilities for action. Obviously, it's 5 years old now, 6 years old, and hasn't even been updated. And so we have the legislature, for example, running around chasing their tails, running around with bills that support nuclear, that change the grid, that can't even define clean energy. It's really a mess. And the way this should work is that the BPU develops a plan. And by a plan, I mean something that says, here's what this is going to cost, and here's how much effort is involved. It has milestones, and has a plan, for example, if it's even possible to reach the 50% cut in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 that Murphy promised us. And then the legislature can write bills following that plan to put more emphasis on certain plans to provide funding for things, etc. Without that BPU plan, we're just going in circles. We're wandering in the wilderness with blindfolds on. That's the way I would put it. So I would implore you, advocate for that when you can. Thanks.
And I'm really glad you brought that up, because this is also something that we're talking about for the next administration, is the question of, is BPU even the right agency to be doing that? Because really, our Board of Public Utilities, their job is to oversee utilities. They're not really the agency that is supposed to be outlining energy policy. And how New York fixed that was they created NYSERDA, New York, State Energy Research and Development Authority.
I've heard NYSERDA.
I hope I got that right. Please don't quote me on that. Because the BPU really may not be the right agency to do that. So we may need a different agency or a different authority that is more familiar with energy permitting, policy development, everything like that, to address that issue. Because yes, I agree that A plan is great, but it does not replace actual movement.
And you actually have to have milestones. I mean, they've been working around, screwing around on storage now. And before that, solar, there's, I mean, they take forever to get anything done. And so the issue, I think, is not budgeting for people. The issue is setting goals and having an organization like that commit to a goal. And then they can say, here's what the funding is that I need. And then they better meet the goal. And stop just counting heads, but start focusing on outcomes instead.
All right. Any other questions?
Hannah, I want to pass it to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am Anna Muller. I'm the Energy Policy Manager. I almost said lead. So my background, I am a graduate from Stockton. I got my Bachelor of Science. That's very important to mention. In sustainability, where I focused on policy, mainly environmental justice and environmental policy. Towards the end, I got into energy because we do have a sustainability lab where it has like a whole sort of different type of energy. Like there's wind, solar, fuel cells. There's a lot. I could go on. And then after.
Did we just lose her, gang?
Can't hear.
Huge rip. Huge. Oh, just quickly repeat what you said because we lost your signal.
Oh my gosh. What was the last thing I said?
You're moving on from Stockton into what you do.
Right. That's when I CRAN, and now I go to Vermont Law. I am not going to be a lawyer. I'm getting a master's of energy regulation and law. And there I am a research associate for their Institute for Energy and the Environment, where I'm working on offshore wind research and looking into best practices for community benefit agreements. Because of that, I don't think New Jersey has them. And I think that may be a big reason why there is so much opposition, but I'll move on. So let me share my screen. Oh, there's so many. Okay. Is it working? Yes. Okay. Okay, so I am sharing the 6 bills that Senator Zwicker presented. Okay. So the first one he introduced directs the BPU to conduct a study on deploying advanced transmission technologies. This would be great for New Jersey because it identifies cost-effective upgrades that will help reduce the grid congestion, because with energy, it will take the path of least resistance. It will also help support renewables, integrate or interconnect, and deploys or avoids expensive infrastructure projects, strengthening our reliability and keeping utility bills lower. And then our next one establishes a training and retraining programs in the Department of Labor to equip New Jerseyans, especially in underrepresented communities. Especially, I'm also doing some research into workforce development, and a lot of the postings are in North Jersey. I'm from South Jersey, and I personally feel left out. So having more jobs available in South Jersey would also help. Um, and then it will also help with skills to install and maintain grid modernization tech. So why would this be good for New Jersey? It invest in high growth, well-paying green energy jobs. It boosts equity and creates local economic opportunity by preparing residents to participate in the clean energy transition. That is one of the things that CRAN is working on. I actually came up with a proposal to establish an office of just transition. New York has one, Colorado has one, and then I think Rhode Island is looking to have one. So we just need to follow the lead, and get our transition flowing. And then so I think Alex also touched on this. Beyonce, if you want to call it that. So this okay. This bill would require AI data centers and crypto mining facilities to submit their energy usage plans to the BPU. And then once it also adds like bringing your own energy, like clean energy, it has to be clean energy. And then once our peer states, and I think it's the PJM region, adopt similar policies, then these centers must power themselves with the renewable energy. I personally, not personally, but CRAN's stance on this, it's a little too corporate centered. We believe that the people of New Jersey deserve renewables first before data centers. But it would help ensure that these big energy users aren't like free riding on the general population, curbs the rapid electricity growth, aligns with operations with like our clean energy goals. Yeah, there's a lot to consider with that because of the transmission and like how does it actually affect our rates. They just signed into law that the BPU has to study what it will do to our costs. And then the next one. So the utilities must get certified by the BPU for initiating transmission projects and include advanced transmission technology. That's what that ATT is. Analysis in their plans. This is the BPU, right? It's our Board of Public Utilities. So that is where our Clean Energy Division is, Office of Federal and Regional Policy. What else is there? I'm blanking. There's a lot. They also have an Office of Clean Energy Equity, which is great. Love those people. Let's see what else. Oh, I lost my right. So this bill forces like evaluations of modern and efficient solutions before expensive new builds, saving monies, minimizing environmental impact, and promoting a smarter grid. Sorry if I'm moving fast. We only have 6 minutes. And then Zwicker, if you don't know, is a physicist. I think Alex also mentioned this about like how people are lawyers or like they're physicists and like those interactions. So this bill would use funds from the Global Warming Solutions Fund to create incentives via the EDA, which is the Economic Development Authority. Their main thing is like grants and anything that has to do with money. So it would to redevelop decommissioned power plants into fusion energy hubs. This could be a good position for New Jersey as a clean energy innovator leader. It repurposes existing infrastructure, which, you know, New Jersey is very dense. We don't have a lot of land to like, you know, develop on. And accelerates development of next generation of zero emission energy sources. And then the last one, I could not find the actual bill, but it is to mandate the BPU to explore leaving PGM, which Alex also talked about, and possibly forming or joining a new regional grid operator. Utilities must prove they've contracted 80% of needed capacity for 5 years. This could be good for New Jersey because it evaluates alternatives to the PJM region that might offer better responsiveness or lower costs, giving New Jersey more control over energy planning and ratepayer protections. So overall, these bills are to address demand from AI, which now accounts for like 5% of state electricity usage and are projected to double by 2030. It focuses on affordability, resilience, clean energy integration, economic opportunity, and it also aligns with Governor Murphy's, clean energy goals, most of them. So I'll stop sharing my screen.
And I will take it from here. I want to thank Anna for just walking over those NJ Ledge bills that we have been talking with legislators about. But I'm gonna rapid fire a bunch of things. Okay, like I do, I talk really fast. So, in relation to solar, I want to like pressure again that I think one of the most important bills is one of those bills to increase the cap for community solar. We are on board with Senator Bob Smith and his feelings of saying there should be no cap. We really should be able to do as much community solar, which benefits low to moderate income households the most. And we need advanced transmission technologies to upgrade our grid to make sure, like Alex said, that we can keep adding more clean energy to the grid, because right now our grid operators are kind of like, I don't care. And we need to move things forward. On the transportation realm, we also have, I know this was a lot of energy focus, but we have a whole transportation policy team that meets regularly. Adrian is not here, but he is our lead. I'm going to show you a few things that can help you stay informed through resources that CRAN has. Share. Boom. Okay, one, you can go to our website, and if you go under Learn, you'll find our bill tracker. You'll go to bills we're watching, and it's sort of just like a blank page, but we track legislation that is related to energy, mostly, and some transportation bills in a bill tracker. Next is that you can also go to Learn and crash courses. And we have 2 crash courses on the introduction to legislative research. So how to find these bills that everyone is pulling up, and how to even use that resource, right? And then also we have a crash course on how to give public comments on some of these issues that we've been talking about. Even on the municipal level, you can utilize these resources to write public comments and also submit them digitally if you don't want to get up on the stand. There's a lot of new people here. Hello, especially to my Gen Z young folk. We are built for you, and we want to work with you on our policy team, right? We meet regularly. And I will re-engage the list that we have from this meeting to say hello. But feel free to DM us or email us or whatever in the meantime. We want to get people into the legislature a lot freaking more in the fall. We've been building our presence. I think Alex knows that. And it's time to really show up every single time that we can, instead of just following along what other organizations are doing with big bills. We have a clean energy future to usher forward in New Jersey, and it seems like there's not a lot of energy from the people who, I don't know, a lot of us feel that this should have gotten done from, and that's why it's on us to get to work. So transportation and energy policy groups are firing off. We are also planning a rally, sneak peek, this hasn't come out yet, for the Make Polluters Pay bill that would tax, I can't use that word, Alex, charge polluters for their historic emissions if they've emitted more than 1 billion metric tons of greenhouse gases since 1995 forward. This is Exxon, Chevron, Shell, to pay for the things that we are talking about with the flooding, with the storms, with the hurricanes, right? It shouldn't be on average New Jerseyans to pick up the bill to rebuild their homes. It shouldn't be on average New Jerseyans to rebuild roads after things get washed out. It shouldn't be on average New Jerseyans to rebuild energy systems when everything gets washed away. We have a moment to do this. The flood gives us even more urgency, and FEMA cuts that have been announced today worth billions of dollars. Where we joined 20 other states to fight the Trump administration on that, right? So August 13th, we're planning a rally in Hoboken with all the major mayors of the major cities, all the co-sponsors of this legislation, council mayors, young people. Fridays for Future, New York City is going to be taking the train over. We're going to be working to get press from both of the major cities. So we need you to help organize with us. This will lead into our fall legislative work and getting the Climate Superfund passed this legislative session, no more delays, and also working on our clean energy future, which is part of our youth agenda, which is all available on the website. And if any of you also, young people, Gen Z, want to show up with me in a meeting with Mikey's team to talk about some of our requests, like on getting rid of the cap for clean energy and so many other things that we talked about today, I'd be happy if you joined me, because I think it's good for not just people who can talk about it like me, but actual people who are concerned about these issues, and to show that this isn't some grand thing that just Alex Ambrose or anyone in that realm cares about, but average New Jerseyans who want to see their future progress. I am not going to keep you much longer. I urge you to take actions when we send them out. I'm grateful to have you all here. And I will stay on for as long As long as you need, I will talk to all of you. And I think there's some of you who are waiting to talk to me anyway. So feel free to stay on as well. Grateful for all of you to spend your time with us tonight. This recording will go up so you can refer to it. And we are always here as a resource. August 13th, there'll be so much more information coming out about it. And we'll make sure to get it over to you soon.
I hope you guys do a LinkedIn post so I can repost.
Oh, you want a LinkedIn post? We'll do a LinkedIn post. How do we stop the recording? Oh, stop recording.